I know there's some overlap with some of these videos that I do, but I get the idea that I can present things a little bit better than what I already did, or that I can add something to it. I really need to script some of this stuff a little bit better, but a couple of things kind of inspired me for this. I kind of repeating myself on one thing, but one thing that inspired me is somebody posted something saying that taxes aren't real. And it's in a certain perspective, that's kind of right. You know, it's kind of, I put it like you're kind of being sanctioned. You know, your country is actually sort of sanctioning you. You know, you kind of have to be. They create things that you need money for. Or you create things that you need money for, and then you're forced to slave your life away to do that. But, you know, it's not just a person's fault as far as what they're getting, what they're spending money on. Because you could pay everything off. Pay everything off. You still got electricity. Okay, let's say you manufacture your own electricity somehow. You get your own water. You're growing your own food, or trading or bartering and everything else, and then you don't even have a grocery bill. They're going to get you for land taxes. You know, they got this mandatory auto insurance. I can't believe people have went for that, and there's a lot of people that are completely fine with that. Mandatory auto insurance is disgusting. That is disgusting. The fact that people, both sides of the aisle, have went along with that just shows how big of an idiot you are. Idiot. You got somebody with a clean driving record and they have to pay a fee on their vehicle for the rest of their lives. That's insane. Think about how much money you spend on that for nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's just like you might as well pull it in your driveway and have a cop rob you. Basically is what's happening. But, you know, all these fees and things like that. But, you know, it's the same thing like with inflation. You know, you take this scenario here. You got a millionaire right here. They're making $1 million a year. This right here is $15 an hour. 40 hours a week. Not missing a single hour the entire year and not getting taxed. So just think about that for a second. Somehow you've completely escaped taxes. Okay? I'm going to say living expenses for the entire year, that's everything. You know, gas, groceries, all sorts of bills that you're going to have. So you got this right here left over. And just because of how nice and generous I am, I gave the millionaire 8 times the expenses. This is bullcrap. But let's just say poor little rich person needs 8 times that amount of money to get by every year. Leaves them with $800,000. This person's got $6,600, and that's because somehow they're paying no taxes. Nothing is coming out of this. Okay, so you could say maybe they make more and they're clearing $15 an hour. Okay, you could just go ahead and say that maybe they're making 17 or something like that. So there it is. If inflation goes up, they're eating into this. And that's if they're only getting by on this much. Chances are they're not. Chances are it's going to cost more. I can tell you that from living in all different areas and having all kinds of bills, and, you know, other people having bills that I don't have. It's probably going to cost you more than this. This is being generous. So you got this left. It will not take long at all. This is for the whole year, by the way. The whole year. It will not take long at all for this to get eaten away. Now, they try to pitch it as sort of the notion that the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. You know, the rich people suffer too, because, you know, inflation's going to hit them too. Yeah, but they've got this. And what's funny is this person over here, when they start to get in bad shape, this person's money becomes more powerful. When this person's money becomes weaker, because that's essentially what happens when inflation goes up, bills get higher, cost of living goes up, you've essentially you've had your money devalued. So, if you're making 17 something dollars an hour, it's like you're making $13 an hour or something like that. And you pick a number. It's like you've had a wage decrease, okay? So your money gets to be weaker. This person's excess gets to be stronger. So it's not linear on this. People try to act like, oh, well, this person's money becomes less valuable. This person's money becomes less valuable. Not true. This person's money becomes more valuable because this person needs it. And what if this person right here is their landlord? You know what they're going to do when cost of living goes up? They're going to raise their rent. If they're their boss, they're going to cut their hours. Think about that. So that's a myth right there, saying that this person's money goes down when this person's money goes down. It's not true. Their money becomes more valuable as this person's money becomes less valuable. Some of them needs to be understood. And there's a scenario that I would like people to think about concerning a rich person and a poor person. Imagine sort of a last man on earth, Omega Man situation. Think about this for a second. We're turned into such slaves. Our time, our calendar is not our own. Our days are not our own. We're deprived. We're not allowed to have things. So think about that situation. Two different realities. One, a wealthy person, very wealthy person, could be Musk, could be whoever else. Could be somebody you made up. They're all of a sudden, what appears to be the last person on earth. They're looking around, there's nobody else. Cities, everything's empty. Another scenario, we got a poor person. Now think about that for a second. It's a different situation entirely, because the poor person now has access to all the things that they need. You could argue, well, there's no doctors. Okay. Well, that situation, that's one thing for sure. Something like that. But as far as utilities and things like that, the rich person already had that. Now they don't have anyone to work for them. It's a completely different situation. So what a rich person is always going to try to do is they're going to try to make they're going to need a system that keeps people poor. And it's got to be very poor. And this is the thing that scares them so bad. People can live on very little and be happy. That is terrifying to them. I think I started to dawn on the establishment, late 70s, early 80s, maybe on up until the 90s. And you notice that schooling and medical care shot through the roof. More mandatory bills happened. I don't know when that mandatory auto insurance thing happened. I don't know if that was just like with this state or if it was a national thing. But that's been since I've been driving. It's not been that long. That's longer ago than I care to admit, but it's not been that long. It's like they're deciding, hey, we need to make more bills. We need to make more bills. They're starting to settle. And then Cash for Clunkers came out, destroyed a whole bunch of good old vehicles. You got the state safety inspections that are tilted towards driving older cars off the road. Emissions and things like that. And there'll be more movements that'll happen too to sort of push the older vehicles off the road. And what it is to keep people paying, keep people in debt. what's funny is what we perceive, what the average person, a decent human being, would desire about being rich. Like if I think about it, what would make me happy about that? You know, what would be the good points if I wake up tomorrow and I'm wealthy? Well, for one thing, I don't have to go to a job. I can do what I want to do. I don't want to be lazy. I want to work. I want to do my own work. Instead, I'm forced into doing something that's got nothing to do with my life. Nothing. That's just the way it is. And people will say, well, you should have got education. You should have done this or that. Okay, so are you saying everybody should? Who's going to work that job? You saying that job should shut down? I mean, what are you saying? People always give that excuse without thinking about it. Oh, you don't want to have to do that sort of job, then maybe you should have done this or that. What if everybody did? Who's going to do that? Who's going to work in these car factories? Who's going to work fast food? And that's the funny thing people need to think about too, is there's so many of these businesses that should not exist. There are wealthy people, like the person over these fast food places are wealthy. The top dog over all these people, they're wealthy. Meanwhile, their whole company shouldn't exist. Seriously, think about it for a second. The whole company should not exist. That's not me threatening it. It's a nonsense company. It's nonsense. Burger King, McDonald's, places like that. Do we need them? Seriously. Seriously, do we need them? We don't. And it's a very fragile situation that they're in, And I think they realize that. I read a long time ago about there being stress among the wealthy. And I always wondered, back then, what are they stressed out about? And it occurs to me, their situation is fragile. They're actually, in a manner of speaking, in a more fragile situation than poor people are. The only reason our situation as a poor people is fragile is because they keep doing stuff. They keep making more expenses for us to have. They keep devaluing our money that we're working so hard for. They keep taxing us. We can take care of ourselves. We're not allowed to, but we can take care of ourselves and we can take care of each other. They can't. They can't. Why do you think they have multiple houses, these big mansions and stuff like that? Sometimes they're fragile old men. You think they're cleaning those? They're not. Their excess wealth, that gaudiness, it has to have poor people ready to work, just ready to hop to. If something happens to that supply of poor people, they're doomed. So, kind of making this sort of a conspiracy type video, but it's something that people need to think about and focus on. And if you're going to, this voting coming up, you need to start looking at some politicians that are going to talk about this sort of thing. Why? What can we do to start peeling some of these bills away? I just heard from one, she is running as a Democrat. I wish she'd be an independent. It's a good sounding one. Grooms in Cock County. I think I got her name right. I'm bad with names. But she's talking about getting rid of sales taxes, at least grocery taxes. And she made a very good point about it. She's definitely putting the work in. She's running one heck of a campaign. I don't know if people listen. I think they're going to see that letter next to her name. And at least I'm consistent, and I avoid both letters. But I'd be very tempted if I was in that district, in that particular area, to vote for. And I'm not big on voting for either one of these parties, and just kind of hope she would go as an independent at some point. Break with this party. But we need politicians that are going to talk about that sort of thing. Too many things are costing money. Why can't you get your driver's license and that be it? Why can't you get tags on a car and then just why do you got to do this every year? I mean, it's one thing if finances are better than what they are, you know. But with cost of living going up and stuff like that, that should be cut out, at least for certain people, certain times. I mean, it's just been steadily going, no matter how bad the situation is. That makes sense to me. Get rid of some of these fees. Get rid of some of these land taxes. To think there could be somebody who's retired, they're not working a job, they're on X amount of income, and the tax man comes around, wants to collect their entire house. That doesn't make any sense. That's not right. If it's yours, it's yours. There needs to be some sort of loosening up of that, if not having it gotten rid of entirely. Certain situations, at least, a lot of situations, that needs to go away. You know, that's just some ideas I've been working on as far as political stances. The main thing any politician needs to be talking about is the most precious thing to a human being, and that's their life. I mean, you think about it. If anybody's worked a job knows this feeling. It's Monday. Dear God, it's Monday. I can't wait till Friday. They're wishing their lives away. I mean, that's a problem, people, because you only get so many. There needs to be some sort of movement that gets people their lives back. That's not such a sinful thing to ask for. Isn't this crazy? Have we really gotten to this point where, you know, if you want to sit around at home, if you want to hang out with relatives, you want to sit on the front porch, go play with your pets? No. I mean, we got this situation where there's another thing where a law needs to be passed for this, and that's labor laws. It should be against the law to force anyone to work more than 5 days a week. It's a violation of religion. As you think about it, Judeo-Christian values means you work 6 days and then rest. Well, if you work 6 days as an employer, it forces you to work the 7th day yourself. You're not going to come home after 6 days of work and have no work to do around the house. So to me, it should be against the law to work somebody more than 5 days a week. I really think not even 5. Which mandatory overtime needs to go away anyway. Hire enough people. Seriously. Or cut down sales. That should not be an option, that you can throw people's lives away because you want to make more money. And it's more than that too. It's the company. Part of the reason that's happening is because there's another company that's competing with them that they want to destroy. That's what that is. They want to beat them. That's what's funny about people calling capitalism free market. It's not. It's not. You got to be crazy to think that capitalism is free market. Capitalism, the whole point of capitalism is to absolutely destroy the free market. That's how you make a profit. If you're selling pencils, you destroy all the other pencil companies, you make maximum profit. See how that works? It means you pay your employees as little as possible. Which means you have high turnover. Because otherwise they're going to expect raises and things like that. So it's just kind of like a little scattered rant. about this sort of thing. People do need to think about what taxes really are. I know a lot of it is connected to this modern monetary theory thing that I have never completely understood. But I do know that they just kind of make this stuff up in government. They really do. Because you'll notice they can't afford this and they can't afford that, and then somebody needs several $billions, and all of a sudden they've got it. I mean, you notice there's no shortage of money for Israel. Something to think about. Think about what matters. Think about what, when this election season's coming up, you know, whatever 2 or 3 people actually watch this video, think about what they're saying. Because bringing in more jobs is not necessarily the thing. Everybody's got a job. You got a life. You might have something that you want to do. If you believe in God, and I don't even think you got to have this idea, everybody's got a talent, a skill. Everybody's special. Maybe there's some sort of way something should harness that, and they can do that with their lives. No, they got to go down to a factory where it's breathing in fumes and dust and everything else, shortening their lives, making a part to a car that they can't even identify on a car they're never going to own, and nobody in their family owns. It's a junk car. It ain't going to last 5 years. So bringing in more jobs doesn't mean anything. We need less need for jobs. We need more opportunity for people to do their own jobs, live their own lives. That's what we need. We need our lives. I mean, we've gotten to the point where we've just sold that down the river. We really have this idea that somebody can reach working age, go into a factory, or wherever, work at this place, and never make enough, according to these judgmental people's standards, to own their own home. Therefore, they're probably not even going to own a pet, because most renters will not even, most landlords won't even allow a pet. So they don't get to have a pet. They don't make enough money to have children, you know, by these people's standards. So their whole purpose apparently was to get grown, work as a cog in this machine, and then die. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I think that person matters. I don't think that they're put there for that reason. And if you say that, if you do, you don't believe in God. That's nonsense. I don't know where you came up with that nonsense. So like I said, just some things to think about. Really, I'm going to have some trouble titling this, but start looking at what they're pushing, what these politicians are pushing. Because the number one thing should be freedom and liberty. You know, we need to be able to afford our health care and education, of course. But we need our lives. We need our lives. You can't get that back. You only got so many tomorrows. And these parasite companies are eating up people's tomorrows. And that's got to stop.